You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 166, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch, Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing within the community, and so much more. So before we can jump into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So Ed, this week, kind of a lighter news week across the board compared to the Baptiste lore-heavy week that we kind of got this prior week. But you know what? There was a lot of craziness, a lot of shenanigans that went down in the Overwatch League this past week. So it kind of balanced itself out in the grand scheme of things. But how has this past week been treating you?
It's been pretty good, actually. 8.2 dropped in WoW, so that's been chaos. Got some Overwatch in. We still need to finish our crappy placement matches to see how badly I rank.
But we're not going to rank 4,000 plus like Spider did.
Yeah, no, Spider's dead to me. No, it's been fun. We're coming up on the 4th, next week, so that's a nice 4-day weekend for me. But us being in the Midwest, we're not used to this all the time, but it is humid as crap out right now. It's not even warm out, really. It's just humid. 76 and just humid, and it's unbearable. So I have the air conditioning on, and I will not apologize if you can hear it at all, because otherwise I would literally be dripping in sweat. So, and nobody wants that. But yeah, I don't know. It's how's your week been?
It's been busy. I've been doing a lot of trade-in for the Overwatch cards. I've been trying to piece together all of the Soul Dynasty inks. I still have a couple to go. I think I have 7 of the 12. The crappy thing that I'm running into is a couple of things. One, a lot of people are having a hard time kind of valuing what the cost of each card is. So, some people are just looking for one for ones, whether it's an ink for a fragment or one of the same thing in regards to the attribute. But then you also have people who are asking for more due to player popularity, which isn't too much of a surprise. So there's a lot of times when someone hits me with a counter offer, which is just in no ways an even trade, and I have to end up declining a lot. But the main issue I've been running into, at least with the Dynasty inks trying to get the team booklet, is the fact that there's 3 or 4 of the 2+ ink ones that are not currently on the marketplace, so they're not up for trade as of yet. So I might be waiting for quite some time. So I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to getting those other cards, but I'm going to keep looking at pretty much every day to see if I could work out some sort of trade. But I do have a lot of good cards that I could trade for those should they ever come into the marketplace. But I'm having a good time. I should have a couple of my physical cards, which were basically duplicates for the physical cards. Those should be here tomorrow. So next week on the show, I'll probably show you guys those and give you guys a little bit of a closer look at that. This has been a good week. A lot of family stuff going on because, it's the start of the summer. The Harry Potter Niantic game came out, so we've been playing that a lot. Probably not as much as we'd like to, just due to the humidity outside, as you mentioned. It's a little bit warmer here, but it's still low 80s and humid as can be. So it is really unbearable, just really across the Midwest, and the rain has not helped in Chicago. But we're not here to talk about weather. We're here to talk about Overwatch, the community, basically everything going on with Overwatch esports. So let's go ahead and jump into the news. So we do have a new patch that was deployed on the public test realm, and this was back on Monday, June 24th. This is for PTR patch 1.38. Now I have to say there's really not a lot on this patch. I know there's been a little bit of speculation that, maybe they're going to throw something else on there I don't know if I'm gonna go on that boat as of yet. But when you look at this, in regards to changes or just new features being introduced, there's really not a lot of notable things, but I do want to mention, like, there is a subtitle feature being added to the game, which could come into play in certain aspects. So they have 3 different subtitle levels that they're going to add. They have critical gameplay and conversations, as well as something to hear, like, everything going on in subtitles. So a lot of this is just being brought in to improve the gameplay experience for the deaf and hard of hearing players, as well as for those who enjoy reading closed caption, which, you know, to me, like, that second part seems kind of weird. Like, how many people actually out there, like, enjoy reading closed caption? And I know this is gonna go into, like, a conversation about anime, because I know, like, I go through this all the time, because you have people that will never listen to dubbed anime, as opposed to, you know, just listen to it in its natural form. But, like, outside of that, I don't really know that many people who are just, you know, watching something in English and then also having the closed captioning on alongside that.
Yeah, I'm not, like, I don't know anybody who does that, who doesn't need it. But I mean, I might actually have it on in the game, because there's a lot of voice interaction between, like, the players that you don't really hear, or it's too quiet for you to hear, or you may not be faced the right way, so it's like you just may not catch it. So you could hear more interaction that way and actually understand what they're saying. That's the only thing I can think of for somebody who it's not needed would use it. I probably won't, but, you know, it's something that may occur. But yeah, this was a super small patch. I think it's, you know, a wolf in sheep's clothing type of patch, and there's a bunch of other stuff that got is uploaded to the PTR, just hasn't gone live on the PTR yet. But we'll cover that in, like, 3 news things from now.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. So, I think it's a smokescreen type of thing. Like, these are nice additions, but I mean, it's been a month since we really had anything. Like, not since we had anything. Like, we had Baptiste event last week, but, like, since we had hero changes or any type of adjustments or anything other than, hey, we added 3 sprays and 1 skin. So I think there's more to it than this.
Yeah, really, like, one of the main things I could use the subtitles used for, which has been pretty notable, is to know when Sombra becomes unstealthed, because she does have, you know, a cue there. And I'm sure there's going to be other things, too, in regards to, like, things that the characters say that could be useful in regards to actual gameplay. So we'll see whether or not, you know, there are going to be teams out there, or, you know, just people that are zigzagging together who are going to want their teammates to have closed captioning on for moments like that, because we are seeing quite a bit of Sombra, depending on what level you are at. So, outside of that, outside of the new feature of subtitles, I know they have a number of workshop changes as well. Obviously, I'm not going to note all of those, just due to the fact that a lot of that stuff is very technical, and I don't want to bore everyone and really not know what I'm talking about, because we don't need that around here. So if you are into creating the workshop modes, I highly recommend you guys go check out the patch notes. And I guarantee you'll understand it a lot more than I will by just saying it and just reading the patch notes entirely themselves. But there is one bug fix in particular that I did want to mention, because this is something that has popped up pretty frequently, and it deals with selecting heroes in the game. So the team fixed a bug that causes players who selected a hero during the hero select screen to have that hero deselected when the setup phase begins. And, you know, there's just sometimes when you lock in something, and, you know, that kicks in, and then someone else comes in, swoops in, and ends up taking that hero. And that's, like, the absolute worst feeling in the world, especially in, like, a solo queue environment, or if you really just want to play a certain hero for, you know, if it's your main or a character that you're trying to learn, because then you're not forced to play in off-roll. So I'm happy to see that this issue has finally been addressed. I know it's been in the game for a substantial amount of time, and hopefully we won't have this issue anymore.
Yeah, I've definitely had that happen to me numerous times because like I'll select and then I'll be like, oh, I got 35 seconds, blah blah blah. And then I'll be like, all right, I'll go grab another soda, grab another beer, grab an Anheuser-Busch, the official beer of esports. Got it in early. I got it in early. And then I'll come back and I'll be like, oh, yeah, now I have to play main tank. We're all gonna die real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm glad they fixed it. I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely seen other people do that too, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna switch real quick to what they were playing. I have been that guy. I have no shame in this.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of go both ways.
Mm-hmm. So, glad it's fixed. Let's hope it's actually fixed and not like a 50% fix.
Yeah, I will say, like, out of the times that particular situation it has happened, is if I'm in the same lobby as people that I just played with, and I know they weren't good at that role. So then you just take it before they can.
Be like, this is my subtle hint of saying you suck. So wait, does that mean every time we play together and then you select what I was on in the previous map, you're like, oh god dang it, Ednar's playing this. I need to take that for the next round so he can't. I'm on to you, Totem. I'm on to you.
I mean, considering that last time, like, nothing we tried worked, I don't think you can really say that.
No, one thing worked. Oddly enough, the worst combination of what we could do worked. So, who knows? I just need to play DPS all the time.
All I know is, when we do our other placements, I'm playing Sombra.
Fine.
Just so we can try it.
Alright.
Or I'll just keep fragging on Zenyatta. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about the workshop, because pretty much every week there's new stuff hidden in the workshop mode, and I do have an update to tell you guys about for the Ana grenade tool, which has been one of the most popular training modes in the game so far. And of course, both workshop modes that we're going to be talking about tonight are from Darwin, who is at the forefront of everything workshop related. So, for those that haven't been following the Ana grenade tool, this was initially released back in May to help players learn where to throw the bionades in order to hit a precise marker. So it's a really good way to learn how to preemptively, fire a grenade at the door, like if you're on defense, to try to get that, really early burst of ultimate charge. And, it just helps across the board, because there are definitely certain maps in particular where you can definitely utilize that to get that early gain. Now, this mode does work for other heroes as well, so looking at some of the other abilities and heroes that you can be training towards, you have Ashe, Mei, Torbjorn, Orisa, Zarya, and Baptiste. So basically, it's just a way, regardless of what hero, to have an idea of where projectiles are going to land based on their area of effect. So, for example, like with Orisa, you can see where exactly your barrier is going to land. You can learn how to get the right impact on your Baptiste alternate fire, which of course is his healing grenades. You can learn how to precisely use Ashe's dynamite, so on and so forth. So it's a good tool across the board. So outside of aim trainers, this is definitely a good tool to utilize. So just as a reminder, since I know we have covered this, but if you want to, test out any of these particular abilities in a more controlled environment, you can use the import code of VDESV.
Honestly, the most important part of this is so you can properly time out when you are trying to do the Kobe from the spawn point with Ana's grenade or with the Orisa shield. You can properly angle it for the perfect shield out of nowhere.
Yeah,
protect your team.
Preferably on King's Row, when you throw it, you don't land it on any of the high ground.
Yeah. So that's really what this is all about. Screw the rest of it. I don't care about any of that. I want to know how to properly throw my shield across the map. and have it land somewhere that could be helpful. And don't think I'm not going to try that, because I will. Because I do it every time I'm on Orisa or Anna. The first thing I do when I leave the spawn room is do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep. I'm going to be amazing at it.
And then by the time you get there, you're going to have to drop another one.
Yeah, and every time I do it, I'm going to yell Kobe.
Okay.
So
I can see that. Would not surprise me at all. But anyway, so outside of that, Darwin is always busy. He actually has he has the most popular workshop mode going on right now. So we actually got an update in regards to, like, the top most played workshop modes, and this was from developer Keith Miran, who had posted this on the forum. So the new top workshop mode right now is a 3D arena fighter that is kind of similar to, like, Tekken, and this is from Darwin Streams, and the mode in question is called Overfighter. So basically in this, characters fight one-on-one in 3 rounds. So what's cool about this is the mode includes finishers, which, if you've ever played Mortal Kombat, it's definitely not to the extremities of Mortal Kombat by any means, because, well, 1, the rating of the game, and 2, like, obviously they don't have, like, gore assets in Overwatch. But basically, like, to use a finisher, all you have to do is melee the enemy to activate the finish animation. I know in the Silosa 1, basically they had Torbjorn, and his finisher was basically, like, dropping the molten core on top of someone that was just laying on the ground. And I know he did, like, a couple of other things in the animation, but I don't know what all of the other ones are as of yet. But basically, in regards to, like, how the game mode actually works, is you basically have different heroes in the game. They don't have, like, a ton of heroes to play right now. So right now they have Doomfist, Reinhardt, Winston, Genji, and Torbjorn. So you have each hero being able to use a dash in any direction, and to do that, all you have to do is double tap one of the directional buttons, and then each hero basically has their own special moves as well. So I know Reinhardt, for example, has kind of like a whirlwind ability with his hammer, so he just, like, spins around. Torbjorn teleports for some reason. Like, it's kind of similar to, like, the comic lore. It doesn't always translate to the actual game. I don't know what the reason behind that, but it is what it is. But basically, like, along with this, we got some new workshop code statistics as well. And we do know that there have been over 290,000 unique game codes, so that's 290,000 game modes created using the workshop mode. And that is spawned from 152,000 different creators. I wonder how much of a percentage the workshop modes that have been made have been from Darwin Streams, because it seems like every week there's just a handful that he's been coming out with. But,
like, does he do anything other than create these?
I honestly don't think so. This is, like, his primary focus.
Like, if he ever stops making them, Workshop's dead. Like, no, it's like, we haven't had a new Workshop game in, like, 6 months.
It's up through those other 151,999 creators.
Yeah, but so far all of them have failed. Like, there's Darwin, and then there's, like, even farther down, everyone else. I mean, if you look at the most played, I'd probably say 70% of them are Darwins. That's a safe bet.
It's almost like he has the most experience with, the workshop.
It's odd like that. I mean, what's gonna happen? He'll get hired by Blizzard.
I would not be surprised.
I mean, it'd be smart of them. He can create crazy, like, arcade games. And that could be his job. And then he'll have more resources and more ability to do crazy stuff, because he won't have the restrictions of Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So, could be fun. But yeah, hire him.
Yeah, we did get a good idea of how popular Workshop mode is in regards to the player base. So we have 4.64 million players have been played in the Workshop. And, looking at the top 10, I know there's one of the aim trainers on there. The RPG one is on there, where you, level up and gain more power and abilities. Your favorite Super Smash Brothers is also still in the top 10. So is Uno. Uno has been, holding steady, which is so weird to me. Out of all of the game modes that, came out, I was like, well, this is cool, but what's the longevity of it going to be? And sure enough, it's still there.
Dude, Uno's still played. And
I know.
Came out 30 years ago.
I literally played Uno yesterday.
Exactly. And how long has Uno been around for?
And how many iterations of Uno have we seen at this point? All I know is we have the Toy Story one that was released with Toy Story 4, and they added the Duke Kaboom card. So basically, when you play that card in Uno, you basically choose another player, and then you shuffle the cards together from those two players, and then you redeal to them.
Yeah, I'm more of a traditionalist. I like basic Uno, and it's literally the most infuriating game of all time. It's that and Monopoly.
Yeah.
And if you're down to one card and that a-hole in front of you has a reverse or draw 4, and you're like, I swear to God, I will murder your children if you do this.
Or in this case, Duke Kaboom.
Yeah. Oh no.
Feels bad, man.
Flip the game, screw this game, and storm out. That is what I recommend every game of Uno should end with.
Yeah, because I will admit we had a game that was between 2 people yesterday, and it lasts 28 minutes. It was a long game.
No card game should last over 10. Like actual card game, outside of maybe Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm. So a trading card game.
Yes.
Okay.
If it's just a normal card game, no, it should not last more than 10 minutes. That's why Monopoly is just the bane of everyone's existence, because those things can go on for 4 hours.
It's kind of the same with Axis and Allies too. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yep.
Or even Risk at times. But anyways, getting back to workshop modes, as we keep talking games. What's interesting about this one is because it is 3D. I know there's a little bit of hiccups when it comes to the camera work, so I know there is a default button to use to kind of reset where the camera is. I want to say in this mode it's F. But it's kind of clunky in a way, just because obviously the game wasn't designed to be 3D in that retrospect. So this one still has a little bit of polishing to do, but I would not be surprised to see more updates come in to just make a better experience. But I will note, you can fall off the map in Overfighter, so you gotta pay attention to where you're standing.
Yeah, and to continue our talk of Nintendo 64 for the 3rd week in a row, it's kind of similar, you're talking about the view, you can reset it. It's in Mario 64, if you hit the top yellow arrow, it would refocus the camera right behind Mario. It's kind of like that, you're resetting the camera. So if you're used to that mechanic, then you should be good at this. Although I'm vastly overestimating the age of probably the people listening to us, and they're like, nobody owned a Nintendo 64. We hate you. Stop talking about it. Go play GoldenEye. All I have to say, greatest game of all time.
I mean, you could throw hats. We don't have that in Overwatch.
Slappers.
That too.
Yeah, imagine Hanzo just being like, nope, I don't want to have a bow. I don't want to have arrows. I'm just going to walk up and start slapping people.
Maybe that's what the ability for that Hanamura security guard would be.
See?
Because he's just a random henchman. That's all he can do.
Yeah, see, this should be what Darwin's working on. Is slappers only. Because I'm sure they could do something, because you can change their abilities, so every time you just run around slapping people.
Yeah, we just need to change all the melees of that.
Exactly. Oh, odd job. Such a good... Alright.
But anyways, if you want to check out Overfighter, you are free to do so using the import code of Z5XK2. So I'm definitely going to play this one a little bit more, but I'm hoping that they're going to add more heroes. But for what I've tested so far, it seems like Doomfist and Genji are the two better heroes in this particular workshop mode. So keep that in mind whenever you're playing. Or if
Doomfist is kind of like the obvious. He has the most Mortal Kombat kit in
this is true.
Overwatch. Like, when you think of it, you're just like the really, the uppercuts.
I mean, he's a combo breaker.
Yeah, he's a street fighter. You know, so it makes sense. I don't know. Does it scream finish him?
No.
Across the screen?
It does not.
Darwin, you dropped the ball.
It also doesn't say Tootsie.
Can you rip someone's head off?
No.
Ah,
We're not there yet.
crushing my dreams here, Darwin.
We need a harder raid-in on Overwatch in order to get to that point. But anyways, let's see what's buzzing within the community this week. So we had a couple of things, both are Overwatch League related. And lo and behold, we got another report. This one coming from Yiska, who writes for Upcomer. He can also be heard on the Tactical Crouch podcast as well, with our good buddy Kick Tripod, and Volamol as well. So Yiska had reported that the 2-2-2 rule lock is going to come to the Overwatch League starting in Stage 4. Now, according to this report, the league basically has notified all the teams of the change back in early June. So looking at the current timeline, we have Stage 4 kicking off on July 25th, with the date of the implementation of this being delayed several times. Now, it's important to note, like, this is not the first time we've heard, sources talking about the 2-2-2 rule lock coming into the Overwatch League. We thought, like, there was a good chance that this would be happening kind of at the mid-season. And, this could explain why we could be seeing a lot more teams running DPS-heavy compositions, or even just Sombra play as well. It would also kind of explain Dragons going out and acquiring a D.Va player to kind of bolster their roster. But really across the board, there's always that internal discussion about, is this the right time to implement it, knowing that, this is going to be towards the end of the season? Is it better to hold off until the end of the season and have it in place for next year? And there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of pros and cons. And I feel like part of this is just due to the fact that when you put in the role lock, they're going to have to do something in regards to the balance of the game. And this is going to kind of like bring us back to that PTR patch. You and I both feel like there's a very good chance that there's going to be a lot more to come with that PTR patch, which is probably going to be, potentially, the 2-2-2 lock for the game in itself. Now, Ed, I want to get your thoughts on that. So, we had the reports of 2-2-2 happening in Overwatch League. Are you feeling like they're going to take the route of implementing it both at the competitive level and also in the game for competitive?
No, not right away. I think for actual Overwatch League, they can probably implement it way earlier than they can on live servers. For everyone else, I think more balancing would be required.
Right.
In my mind, when you only have 20 teams, I don't want to say the balancing isn't important, but all the same teams are on the same footing and they're going to have the same meta. Is basically what will happen. Maybe slight variations like there always is, but it's basically going to be the same for everyone. Whereas on live servers, people generally don't play by the meta, and they want to make it a more balanced game. So, like, if a perfect example, like I've talked about this numerous times, is the Bastion with the shield that was originally in beta. Like, if there was a comp that was broken like that, you know what? At least it's only for those teams in the Overwatch League to deal with, and they could work around it. Whereas in the Overwatch game itself, that's not an option, like, for everyone else, because they're not as coordinated. They can't do stuff like that. and they can just get away with more broken heroes in the Overwatch League than they can with the rest of the Overwatch population. I think some testing will need to happen. I think they probably have a fair amount of like with this patch that they're not showing us. If this is again, this is all rumored, so take all of this with a grain of salt because we don't believe it until it's confirmed.
Yeah, we've heard from sources in the past that it was happening, and then, I mean, if you line the two things up, that they were probably really looking at it, and then it did get delayed. But again, this is all according to the sources with these reports.
So I imagine with this PTR, we are going to have some balance updates revolving around going 2-2-2. That could be stuff like buffs to Baguette, nerfs to certain DPS heroes who could be overpowered in a 2-2-2 that they had kept trying to buff to try to make them relevant before role locks. Like a Symmetra kind of comes to mind a little bit because Symmetra is fairly overpowered when it's 2-2-2, but that's not required. So you don't if you run goats against a Symmetra, it's not as powerful. So certain things like that. I think Sombra, I don't think she'll get changed much, but I see her falling off the meta. Certain characters will have to get buffed or nerfed up and down regarding 2-2-2 role lock. Back to your question though of if it should be in stage 4. No, it really shouldn't. It's too late in the season. I know we've gone through patches where they have introduced new heroes. There's been balance updates. That's part of the game. This is much bigger than that. This is kind of I mean, it would be like if when they went from no limits to not no limits, if they did that in stage 4 of the playoffs or stage 4 of the season 2, you're like, okay, well, you can play unlimited number of heroes. Well, I know you guys have been playing this for 3 stages. Now we're going to change it up and you can only pick one of each. That's more drastic than balance. Oh, Mercy's not meta.
Yeah,
that's a bigger thing.
I will note, we kind of saw something similar last season going into stage 4. But again, that was more of a balance patch, not necessarily a new feature, so to speak. And
exactly.
Basically with that, we'll use the Dallas Fuel as an example because they were the beneficiary of those changes because they were running Brigida a lot more than all of the other teams in the league. Even upwards of running her 60% of the time when everyone else was kind of 15 to 20-ish%. And then Dallas Fuel, who had their fair share of struggles. It was a long season for the Dallas Fuel last season. A lot of issues kind of behind the scenes or experimentations with the tank line, affect all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, in stage 4, they all of a sudden became, a stage playoff team. And if they go about introducing the 2-2-2 lock come stage 4, I feel like I'd prefer them to just hold off until the start of the next season. The real question is, how are they going to actually implement it? Because, part of me is just well, we've kind of seen the balance cycle within Overwatch. They basically done everything that they can to try to nerf goats, and, on live, for pretty much for the most part, there's really not that many people that are running 3-3. We've seen the rise of, Orisa compositions that have been at the forefront, which means, Roadhog's been seeing more play. We've been seeing a lot more DPS entering the fold across all levels of play. And even in the Overwatch League at this point, especially this stage, everyone is not just running 3-3. We've had a pretty healthy mix across the board of teams running 3-3. We've seen teams summon out their Diva in order to play Sombra in their 3-3 compositions. Well, in this case, it's kind of like the countdown, because it's 3-1 at that point. But we've also seen Orisa compositions with, Double Sniper, with what the Philadelphia Fusion have been running. We've been seeing a lot of Ball 3 DPS compositions, So when you put in something like 222, you're basically going to be taking away the identity of like a handful of teams at this point. You know, you have Chengdu Hunters, who have been notorious for running 3 DPS. Shanghai Dragons are also in a very similar boat. You have the Shock, who have been primarily just running 3-3. Same with the Titans. And this is just such a drastic shift where, while I will admit, like, this does add intrigue to seeing, like, how teams are going to do come Stage 4 and how that's going to shake up either the meta or how teams are going to kind of, like, unfold leading into that play-in tournament. It does definitely kind of increase the likelihood of a major upset come the end of the season, despite a team having dominated basically, like, pretty much throughout the entirety of the season. So it's this weird thing. Like, I feel like right now, just with the amount of changes that we have seen, I don't feel like forcing, like, half of the league to basically just run 2-2-2 now, as opposed to what they've proven to be, fairly competent at, is a right way to go. But I'm really anxious to see the balance philosophy when this does get implemented, because that could have so many different iterations where maybe they'll just drop 2-2 and then they'll just try to balance as they go, which would be an absolute shit thing to do, and we cannot wait for these changes to happen in regards to the actual balance if they are going to put in the 2-2-2.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing is, people who are gonna compare it to, like, if it comes out in Stage 4, like Trenchfoot put in chat, so he said it's going to penalize the teams who have worked hard and constructed their teams to master the meta over the last 3 stages. I have zero problems with completely shaking up the meta and getting rid of GOAT or Dive or whatever with balance updates. Those are balance updates or new heroes. That is part of the game. And then that's in every game. My big issue with the 2-2-2 lock coming into Stage 4, if it does, is you're changing the fundamentals of the game. And that's different than just balance changes or a new hero. You're changing the fundamentals of the entire game. And that's only happened one other time in Overwatch history, and that's when they went from no limit to limit heroes. So that is the big thing for me. And, I could care less how much it may affect all these teams that are GOATs. I truly could care less. I just want to make sure that they're not doing this just to get rid of GOATs, because you're like I said again, you're changing the fundamentals of the game to get rid of the meta. Like, that is not something you can do.
Especially at a time when we've slowly seen more and more teams stick into DPS-centric compositions.
Exactly. Like, people who are championing this because they want to get rid of GOATs, that is the wrong reason to get behind this. You're just upset with the meta. Like, that can get changed every time. You see it in games all the time. You don't change the fundamentals of the game just to get rid of a meta. You balance update, you introduce new heroes. That is what changes it. So I'm still for 2-2-2. I just don't want people to get the wrong perception of it as, oh, we're implementing this to get rid of GOATs. No, they're implementing this to, one, it will make the game 10 times easier to balance, which is good for everyone. And 2, it will make it more entertaining to watch for the fan base, which is really all the Overwatch League probably truly cares about, is how many people are watching.
And to that note too, like, even with the meta shifting towards more DPS, we still have seen a pretty steady decline of viewership on Twitch throughout Stage 3, and it is pretty alarming. Like, we basically went from having like 100,000 concurrent this prior stage to, I know there's been times when we've had like 60 or 70,000 in this stage, and that's even with more teams playing to their strengths as opposed to just running 3-3 or Sombra Goats.
Yeah, you've seen a decline on Twitch at least. I'm still up in the air on how much we can trust numbers like this because you don't know where they're all coming from. You know, China, like not Billy Bill. Who's the Spark sponsor? Whoever the Spark sponsor, the YouTube of China. I know they stream over there. I know you can't truly trust Chinese numbers, but
or MVP votes,
or MVP votes. Well, no, you can trust those numbers because there's a shitload of Chinese people. So, but like, I think they're fine with the ratings or the viewership numbers.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, obviously they would probably like them to be higher, but who says a 222 will get more viewers?
Right.
Like, it's just bad timing. If they would have introduced it at season and mid-season, perfect, fine. You have the whole second half. But now you're like, okay, we're 75% of the way through. We're going to completely change the game. And not with balance changes or a new hero. We're just going to completely and utterly change the game. What they should do is introduce it and make it the big feature of the World Cup.
Right, and that is a good point to make too. So if this
that is where it should be like, this is what you expect to see. Give them plenty of time to work out the bugs. Get the balance out there. Like, this is a major deal. They need to make sure the game is balanced while changing this.
Right, and if 222 does happen in Stage 4, that guarantees World Cup will also be 222.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the end of the day, like, I just hope that we are going to get roll queue and, separate SRs based on what we are playing in regards to the roles as well. But we'll see how they're going to go about implementing this whenever it does happen. But, obviously this has been, like, one of the hot topics for really, like, quite some time now because roll queue has been something that people have been wanting, same with the roll lock. And, there's pros and cons to the system, but, like, the biggest thing at the end of the day is just how they're going to implement it and what's going to come along with it. Because there's a lot of risk involved if they just throw 222 in and then just leave the game how it is in its current state.
Well, that will be a giant shit show if they do that. If they're just like, here's 222. And one other thing that just popped into my head is the reason why it would come into the Overwatch League first before coming into live is in the Overwatch League, they don't have to worry about SR and ranked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will need to have separate SRs for every role. Like, so you will have 3 SRs because you can't have joint SRs. Like, that would be just idiotic if they did that. So now they have to decide, okay, what are you going to do? Do you have to do 30 placement matches? Or do you have to do 10 placement matches on the role you want to play to get your SR? Or stuff like this is stuff that they have to work out, PTR, do all that stuff before it's live to everyone else. I'm 100% looking forward to this on live with everyone, but there's so much that needs to be worked out that it's mind-boggling.
What I'm really curious, though, Ed, is when this does come to the game, what your DPS SR is going to be compared to your tank and support one, since that was the game that we won.
It's good. Like, I will have to... It can be an experiment we do. Is, what's Ed's SR on each role? And then we can take bets. That can be our version of the off-season fantasy.
Yeah, perfect. So on record, on record, guys. I mean, I already know the answer to this, but where are we currently SR wise? Because I know you've been kind of holding steady, but you also don't play every season.
I don't even know. Like 15, 1600?
Yeah, so you're silver?
I'm silver.
Because we've been getting silver placements.
Yeah, I just haven't. I think I've done placements one out of the past like 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 or 6. Like, I did it every season for like the first 7, 8, and then just didn't really do it at all after that.
See, I have a feeling like it'll be like silver, silver, and then gold, potentially.
Yeah.
But then again, who knows? Maybe it'll just be the same for all three. I don't know. But that is really curious because, like, for someone like me who, like, I've always kind of flexed around a lot, since I haven't really been DPSing a whole lot, I wonder how much that has been a detriment to my overall DPS play as opposed to the tanks and supports that I've been primarily focusing on for, like, the past 8 seasons.
So if you look at, like, I tanked my early SR because all I would do was play DPS. Like, I think my first few seasons I was like 75% Widowmaker play.
You're one of those people.
Yep, I was one of those. So
why is our damage so low? Oh yeah, that's right. It's because we have a Widowmaker.
So like, and only doing my 10 placement matches, it's just like, all right, well, this is gonna go down. It's gonna stay down. Like,
it can't go down if you don't play.
Exactly. Except the next stage next season when you do your 10 placements, it's gonna be like you haven't played in 3 months. You're going down.
Especially if you're playing. If you just stick with hitscan too after not playing for that long.
Oh yeah. So I'm all for an SR reset. I feel if we're gonna do this, where if we get this and I do my placements in SR for all 3, I'll have to do it on Blame Canada. Because I had not done any placements at all, and I'll get true numbers.
Right.
And I think it will be silver, silver, gold, maybe silver, gold, gold. Silver being DPS.
See, I feel like I'm going to be... Well, let's see. My tank account, when I was learning Reinhardt, was... high, like, mid-gold? So I don't know if I'd be gold, gold, plat, or 2 plat and gold. I don't know. But anyways... While we try to figure out who's going to land where, should this ever happen, which we hope it does at some point. We'll see whether or not it's the same time. But anyway, so outside of the 222 reports, we also have a report from Halo of Thoughts in regards to the recent issues with the Boston Uprising. So Ed, we've talked in the past about some issues on this team, in particular, their Korean players on the roster. So there is a new report out from Halo of Thoughts talking about some of the behind-the-scenes issues that Boston have been dealing with, which is going to explain what exactly is going on with their support line. So according to this report, at the start of Stage 3, which we know this has happened, the Uprising went out and they benched both of their starting support players, so that would be Kelix and AimGod. Now, the move basically came to neither player wanting to play on the same team with the other, according to this report. Which, is very reminiscent to what's going on with Philadelphia Fusion and, Carpe and Fraggy. Imagine how that works.
Weird.
Fraggy's just not played. But anyways, Boston at the time decided to bench both of them in favor of running both Persia and Elamon. Now, Persia was basically brought onto this team as a replacement for AimGod, after the team was growing tired of some of his behavior around the team. And, despite what's been going on, they did bring AimGod back into the starting lineup, along with Kelix, this past week when they were going up against the Paris Eternal, which was a victory for the Uprising, which also came in a Map 5. We'll have some stats about Boston and Map 5s here in just a minute. But basically, right now, it seems like the team is expecting both of them to play the final Stage 3 game for the Uprising, which, again, is against Philadelphia. So you got the battle of the 2 Map 5 giants, so to speak. But it's just one of those things. It seems like there's still this divide on Boston when it comes to their roster and then their Korean players. And this has been something that's been happening for a long time on this team. That's why Stryker wanted to get the hell out of Boston. And sure enough, now he's benched, but he's out of Boston. So it's just it's a recurring theme.
I mean, and here's the thing is, the Boston Uprising is just the epitome of dysfunction. The reason they're having these issues, and there's always been drama around Boston, always, since He Who Must Not Be Named, and the reason is they constantly sell off their players, sign new players. They don't allow synergy to actually happen between teammates. Like, between the whole team, they're never around long enough to see who works together, who doesn't, stuff like that. It's just like, hey, we're going to throw you all in here. Whoever performs the best is going to get traded away. And then we're going to bring in somebody else. So everyone's on edge. Everyone just, you don't know if any of them get along. Obviously, they probably don't. You've heard horrible things about how they treat their players. You heard that, I think, towards the end of season 1, with people not getting, I think it was like people got cut and weren't given airfare home, and they lived out of the country. Like, it's just, this team is just so horribly run. Like, I get what they're trying to do, but they're obviously making money on it, but at the expense of the actual team and the players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't allow teams to actually become a team together, you're going to have stuff like this come up. And I'm not blaming Aim God. I'm not blaming Kellex. I'm not blaming Up Fusions. I just call him Up because he looks like,
yeah, we've been through
from
this.
Up. And, I'm not blaming any of them. I think it's more of the mentality around it is, any one of us can go at any time, so why should I work as a teammate with any of these people? Like, Aim God's probably their best player. I'll say that. Probably their best player. And he probably, in his mind, is thinking, okay, how long until I'm off the team? And I'm on some other team. I get traded off. I get sold off. Why should I give two craps about playing with Kellex when I know I'm not going to probably be here at the end of the year, or at the end of this stage, or stuff like that? Like, it's just the whole organization is just a shit show. And you know what? I'm not going to say you're used to it with New England, Boston sports teams, but there's a reason everyone hates every team from Boston and New England area. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Everyone hates the Patriots. Like 75% of people hate the Red Sox. The Bruins are just the worst. The Celtics are trash. Like, you just have to hate all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm not putting this on any of the players. I'm putting this on the actual organization itself.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, there are a number of teams where there is going to be a cultural clash, so to speak, because a lot of the rosters in the league are mixed rosters. So you have a lot of Eastern players with a lot of Western players. And I feel like a lot of how this plays out is whether or not the coaching staffs have experience maintaining the relationships on prior teams that had mixed rosters. I feel like there are a lot of situations where, maybe they're coming from an EU team, or just a pure NA team, or a pure Korean team, and then they come into the Overwatch League, and they have a harder time building that play relations, because, they don't necessarily have the necessarily tools in order to, bud those relationships. So there's always kind of been, like, this discord, especially on Boston, and I feel like you're right. I feel like with Boston, it's a lot of, like, walking on eggshells, because they know, like, at the end of the day, regardless of how you're performing, there is a good chance that they're going to be buyers. They're going to go to more than likely, like, one of the underrepresented regions, so they can buy low and then sell high on whoever they're trading off. And then they'll just continue to cycle that time and time again, and that seems to be a recurrent theme. But at the end of the day, there still seems to be a very big disconnect on this team, just between their Korean part of the roster and then the rest of their roster. And I don't know what the fix is. Like, obviously, you can maybe just say, like, okay, we're just not going to build a mixed roster, at least with Korean players. But I feel like, to an extent, too, like, that's also going to put them in a position where then they're also not going to be able to build the best roster that they can have when they are buyers as well. Because we have seen other teams out there that are buying, cheaper players from Korea as well. So it's not just buying cheap players from, like, South America or Australia. It's really across the globe at this point. But Boston, like, there always just seems to be something going on behind the scenes. And I can't say that I was surprised to hear, everything that I saw from this report.
And that's the other reason that, like, I blame the team is, if it was coming from Vancouver, the Valiant, Gladiators, New York, some of these teams that you don't hear stuff about every stage, it seems like, it'd be like, okay, then this might be something going on. But it's literally every stage something's going on with Boston behind the scenes. And eventually these coincidences of, hey, this player is being toxic, hey, this player is being toxic, this player, and it's always on the same team. It's the team, not the players. There's consistency here. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So I mean, and I mean, who doesn't like shitting on Boston teams? I don't, because I hate all of them. They're almost as bad as the Cubs.
You're just gonna throw that in there.
Well, the Cubs are literally the worst thing in sports history. I'll just throw that out there.
I mean, they did lose a lot.
Yep, good.
But you know what? At least we're still better than the White Sox.
I don't know. They have more World Series.
Yeah, but they're also sub 500.
Yeah. I'll take championships over being under 500.
Yeah, but it's not what have you done, it's what have you done lately. But that's an entirely different discussion. You can definitely make the argument on both sides, for sure. But anyways, let's see what else is happening in the Overwatch League this past week. Of course, there's been a lot of shenanigans. Obviously, last week we talked about the final form of Florida Mayhem for this season. So we'll see those new places, those new faces in play. I can't talk. So, we'll probably get to see at least one new player when Gargoyle comes into the fold to, have their start and off-tank position. But we do have some coaching updates from Los Angeles, both the Valiant and the Gladiators. So I figure I'm just going to pair these both together. Because, the coaching stuff is more... It's good, but, like, we don't have as much to talk about in regards to, like, backstory and things like that. So for the LA Valiant, they've gone out and they've picked up Reprise as a new assistant coach. And Reprise is the current owner and head coach for Revival, who formed following the Mayhem Academy departure from the Contenders scene. Now, Reprise did note that he is going to continue to own Revival and support the team in Contenders, and he'll be reunited with a familiar face, at least from Mayhem Academy, who was their head coach, that being Promise, on the Valiant, who is also an assistant head coach. Now, moving over to the other side of LA for the LA Gladiators. I don't know. I shouldn't say, like, the other side. It's still the same place. Like, I don't think there's, like, a north and south side of LA introduced to the Gladiators and the Valiant. I don't know how that breaks down.
I mean, I don't know LA that well, but, like, BlizzCon, you don't say, hey, I'm going to BlizzCon in Anaheim. You're like, I'm going to BlizzCon in LA.
I never say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even the baseball time again, the Angels are the Los Angeles Anaheim Angels. Yep.
Well, we also don't say that Disneyland is in Los Angeles Anaheim.
Minor details. But there's definitely, like, the boroughs of LA.
It's just a matter of, though, Or are they separated by fan bases? This is what I was trying to get at.
They could be.
They might be. But anyways, getting back to the Gladiators. They have gone out and hired Faustus as a new assistant coach. And he had served as, an assistant coach on one of the EU powerhouse teams, that being the Angry Titans, who are probably still staying angry after losing in their own house in the showdown and getting stomped by NA. Oh, feels good, man. I'm going to keep throwing it out there every time I can. But they did, of course, win that prior season of Contenders Europe. So we got 2 new assistant coaches for both teams. And, the Valiant are definitely on an upswing. Gladiators, I feel like, are kind of holding steady. They're still definitely in the playoff discussion. But, I still feel like the Gladiators have a little bit of kind of like switching things up on the current meta. Like, I feel like they've been a bit slow to adapt, but the Valiant seem to have it down pat, comparatively.
Yeah, they kind of do, and the signing by the Valiant actually makes so much sense because he did coach 2 of the players that are on the Valiant now, and the Gladiators signing, Angry Titans ex-head coach, obviously we all think of EU, like you said, tank. Their tank lines need probably some work. Like, I think the tank line for the Gladiators is the weakest part of the team. So all these coach signings, assistant coaches signings make a lot of sense. And, I think you hear it on every podcast imaginable is the more coaches, the better.
That's not always true.
To some degree, it is. Like, if you have a tank coach, a DPS coach, a healer coach, that's smart to have. Like, I think each team should have 5 coaches.
Okay, well, at the end of the day, Ed, the only definitive thing that we could say about coaches and quantity is that coming in with 1 is definitely the wrong thing to do. Cough, cough, Florida Mayhem Season 1.
Yeah, but now Florida has, I think, like 14.
I've lost track.
Like, they have the largest, probably, like, support staff roster out.
Yeah, they're getting close to, like, Meta Skyfoxes.
Yeah.
Not quite to that extent, but just about.
Yeah, I mean, Meta Skyfox is basically hires you if you show up. You're like, hi, I'm looking for a job. Hired. We're going to make you in charge of coaching Sombras on 2 CP maps.
Add to Liquipedia.
Like, Liquipedia has their own page for Skyfox's coaches only. Not the players, just coaches. But, it's good. I'm glad, I think the Reprise one is pretty big. More so than, the one for the Gladiators. Just because he has, Reprise has more work with who I think is a very, very big up-and-coming DPS player in Jax with the Valiant. And if he has that rapport with him after coaching him in, Mayhem Academy, dealing with all that, that's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, Fact Fiction and Shax have kind of taken on this moniker of being the Shriek Slayers.
And then you have McGravy. Yeah, McGravy's on that. But McGravy's just not going to play. Let's just be real there. They didn't even play Space this past week. It's not like they're going to throw in McGravy over Space. So, yeah, it's just good coaching moves. I like them. I like them both.
So we also have some Overwatch League MVP news. We got 2 things, actually. So one, we do have an MVP skin coming out for Overwatch that was for Jonak, basically, which is pretty cool, because he did win the Season 1 MVP. So that's kind of like their way to commemorate that in-game. So his MVP skin is based on his favorite animal, which he also has tattooed on his arm, that being the octopus. And basically, like, with this skin, it's kind of interesting. So basically, like, Zenyatta has, like, a fishbowl on his head, and then there's, like, an octopus inside the fishbowl, and then you can see like water kind of like streaming through like tubes on his arm. And the orbs are obviously like a baby octopus as well. So I have to say, like, this skin is actually pretty cool. I have not taken a look at like the golden version to see how that looks. But the skin is going to be available to purchase starting tomorrow. That would be Thursday, June 27th. But we do not know what the price point is going to be. So it's important to note, like, we did come off of like a double token weekend. But when you're looking at the other Overwatch League skins, those had all been set at 100 Overwatch League tokens. We've also had like the Lucio emote, which was like 250 or 300 at the time. So we're looking somewhere in between that range, but definitely going to be one that I'm going to pick up, especially since, it's a Zenyatta skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm assuming it will be 200, because that's what a lot of these specialty skins are for, Overwatch League, because I believe the All-Star ones were 200 apiece. I'm assuming it's 200, but yeah, no, I'm 100% buying this the second it's available tomorrow, because I really like this skin. I'm kind of over the team skins a little.
Okay.
Not that I think they're bad. It's just like, am I gonna show the team skins, or am I gonna show the fun skins that are in the game? I don't know if I want to do all of that. And also, they don't have a Chicago team.
Which is a bigger underlying issue.
Exactly. Like, I think I have 8 Sparks skins now. And I don't think I'm going to buy all the Spark skins. But, that would be, if I was to go nuts on them, it would be for the Spark skins, easily. But it's cool that they gave the MVP their own skin, and I hope they continue this on a yearly basis. They really should, because that's an added, like, you're immortalized in the game forever because you won the MVP. And I just think that's really cool. So, I don't know. We had a huge discussion, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to make you name them. We had a huge discussion in our OWL discussion channel on Discord.
Okay.
Who are your top 5 for MVP so far?
Jesus Christ. Top 5?
Top 5. Top 5.
Top 5.
I'm making you say your top 5.
Sinatra.
Okay.
Okay, there's one. Rio Jehan.
Okay.
That's 2. Ooh, man. I'm trying to think, like, who's been consistently really good. Decay.
Okay.
That's 3. Haxel. That's 4.
That was the one that caused the most argument in our channel.
I feel
I don't
like
know if you watched the replays of Sunday's matches. You didn't watch like the desk.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and watch when they announced the Jonak skin, they actually went through and they were announcing who they thought their like top MVP contenders were.
Okay.
And they said Bumper, and then they kind of like some of them kind of lost it that they said Bumper over Haxel. And then Sideshow was like, "How could you make a big man?"
Well, here's
an
the
MVP.
thing. I feel like if you were going to nominate someone on the Titans, realistically, when we're talking about impact of the overall team, the 3 people that I could see them nominating from that team are Suominsu, Bumper, and Haxel. Like, maybe Twilight, but, it's just one of those things. It's all dependent on, like, what you value the most. I feel like Haxel has kind of been at the forefront of all the Brig players and kind of been the one to shut down probably the most amount of ultimates, outside of Fury, by the way, who would be my 5th one.
Yeah, see, now I went Sinatra 1, Haxel 2, Gushue 3.
Okay.
Twilight 4, Fury 5.
Okay.
So, I mean, fairly similar. It's just I think the nod will go to the more flashy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, and Gushue, as much as I love Gushue and I love the spark, the reason I'm putting Gushue in the top 5 is because part of this, and I think we'll talk about this, is part of the who gets the MVP nod is fan voting.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but part of it.
25% of it.
Yeah, so China votes a lot. Like, Gushue would be the number one, I think, Chinese vote getter out there. Him or Jinmu. But Jinmu isn't as much on the forefront now.
Mm-hmm.
Neither is Imeng as they were previously. So
Strange.
I think Gushue, yeah, weird.
It's strange, like when he's not just playing Pharah against 3-3 and then he's actually having to go up against Hitscan or other Pharahs. There was a little bit of a decline there.
Weird. I think Gushue is definitely going to be the fan favorite. I mean, hell, he already is a fan favorite. So yeah, Gushue. I think it's actually probably between Sinatra and Gushue at this point.
Okay.
And the only reason I don't think anyone from the Titans will make it is because it's the simple fact that they're all so good.
Mm-hmm. That it's hard to have more of a standout.
Yeah, you can't have a standout when all 5 of them are standouts.
Okay, but if we go based on last year, it's going to be the second best team throughout the season. So it's either going to be a Shock player or a New York Excelsior player.
Or Titan player.
Potentially, depending on how they adapt to
Hey. Titans only have 1 stage championship. Same with the Shock.
But they only have 1 loss.
Potato.
But anyway, speaking of the MVP, we also have the 2019 OWL MVP details. So the candidates are going to be revealed on July 25th. So basically, like right now, all of the Overwatch League team general managers are voting for 5 candidates to be nominated through ballots. So they're going to narrow that down to the top 5, and then fans will be able to vote for one of the 5 players. So voting is going to open up both on Twitter and also the Overwatch League Twitch channel from July 25th through August 24th, so that will be going through Stage 4. So of course, like when this does open, you can vote on Twitter using the hashtag OWLMVP. Then you gotta use like the Twitter handle or the Battle.net name of the candidate in question. And of course, we'll get the announcement of the 2019 MVP presented by T-Mobile. Because you have to say that because it's part of it, because they're a sponsor. That'll
I miss Golden Boy.
Yeah. He needs to come back for that, for the T-Mobile
I mean, he is coming back for the Atlanta home series.
Mm-hmm. So next week.
Yes.
But anyways, they will be announced during the season playoffs. So as you mentioned, like they have been doing some segments, at least this prior week. But they will have more like MVP checkpoint segments during the broadcast to discuss who they feel like are going to be the MVP contenders, and will then profile the top 5 finalists come early August. And you know, we already went through our top 5 lists, even though you put me on the spot about it. But you know what? I handled it. You know what? I handled it better than Bob would when he would know ahead of time. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. So there's that. But anyways, let us know who you think is gonna win the OWL MVP, or who you think your top 5 candidates will be. But I promise you, if you vote for Jonas, I'm just going to mute you.
Oh yeah, no, you're a horrible person if you do that.
Or XQC for that matter.
Oh yeah, no, XQC cannot be allowed to be on this. Period. Yeah, no. Thank God. No offense, fans, and I'm one of them. But we're all basically idiots when it comes to this. Let's just be real. 99% of the fan base when it comes to this are morons. Because what they're gonna do is they're gonna vote for their favorite or the meanest player and call it a day. Like all the Washington fans, they're not gonna actually vote for like the true Washington fans or true Overwatch League fans who are diehard Washington fans are not going to vote for Sinatra or anyone other than someone on the justice. Well, that's a wasted vote. Like, let's be real. And it happens in every league.
Mm-hmm.
NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey. I don't know about hockey. I don't follow that. But I'm assuming it happens there too. It's the fan, whatever team votes the most, they get players in, and then that's it. Like, regardless of if they're actually good or not. So the fact that the fans only count for 25% of the vote is awesome, because it's like you have a voice, but you're whispering. So I'm good with that. Give people the false hope that they actually matter in the All-Star voting or MVP voting, and then be like, okay, let's do the real vote now. So, sorry if that hurt some feelings. Don't really care. It's the truth.
Your vote matters, but it also doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's basically, because this is America. That is
which also lines up with our political
yes,
stuff
exactly.
as well. So it is just continuing off from there. But anyways, let's jump into our main discussion for tonight, which of course is going to continue our Stage 3 discussion for the Overwatch League. So let's reflect on the week that was, all of the shenanigans that happened, all the wizardry outside of Wizards Unite. So basically, if you were in the Pick'em leagues, you probably had a pretty rough go of things, as did a lot of other people. There were quite a few upsets this week, whether you base it on record or if you base it on what the community votes were. I know there were probably 6 or 7 that were perceived upsets, so to speak. Obviously, the biggest one being the LA Valiant victory over the Vancouver Titans, which ended in a 3-1 victory for the Valiant, which marked the first loss for the Titans in the regular season during the stage. So, what's interesting is the fact that, with that win, the Valiant have put themselves into a position where they could potentially make the Stage 3 playoffs. And it also means that now we have 2 prior 0-7 teams having beaten the top 2 teams in the league. Obviously, the Outlaws did something similar when they defeated the Shock. Now we have the Valiant defeating the Titans. So, we always talk about, that circle of parity and, every given Sunday mentality of the league. And it continues to happen time and time again, just maybe not as frequently as some upsets may go. So outside of that, of course, we had Boston, who does Boston things and goes to a Map 5. They went to their 20th Map 5 in the Overwatch League since Season 1. And that was a winning effort against Paris. And what's interesting about this is the fact that when it comes to Boston, basically half of their wins this season have come in the form of reverse sweeps. What is going on with Boston where they get out of the gate very slowly, but then are able to clutch it out? What do you feel like it is with that team that makes them be able to do that more so than what we've seen with a scrappy team like Philadelphia?
It's almost impossible to figure this out, because it's not all right. So you have the other main, when you think of Map 5 teams, you think of Boston. And actually Fusion University, not Philadelphia Fusion University. And Fusion University does it, and then they win.
Oh, except against Runaway.
But the majority of the time they win their Map 5s. Boston Uprising, I think, have easily not won the majority of their Map 5s.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it gives people false hope. Because they not only do they lead in game 5s, they lead in reverse sweeps. So it's the first 2 maps, they don't truly try, or really don't really give 2 craps. Now, in this stage, it's just a coincidence that the first match that they put Aim God and Kellex back in together, they win. It's just, I don't even know how to put it. because this team is just baffling to me. Like, they're not a good team. They're not a trash tier team. They're not a, Mayhem Justice level team.
Hey, the Mayhem won a game. and I was waiting for you to say, like, did you hear what you just said?
Yeah, okay, I get that, but no. The Boston Uprising have way more wins this season than the Mayhem. Let's just get that right. But they're not trash tier, and I just don't get why they are so wishy-washy when it comes to everything. They're just a team that you need to. It must hurt your soul to cheer for, because going in, you're aiming for disappointment.
Basically, you're starting 2 steps back.
Exactly. Like, you're just like, okay, you go in expecting to lose every match, and it's a pleasant surprise when you don't lose. That's not how you should go in as a fan. And like all these map 5s, it gives you false hope. And the majority of the time, that leads to, oh, I can't believe they did this. And then, then you get Persia starting. And you're like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's they've been like this since last season. They showed their potential with an undefeated stage, but then sucked the rest of it. Like, they're showing potential now where, like, you see them wanting to flip that switch to go to the next level and start winning some of these 3-1, but you don't expect it to ever happen, and they fulfilled those dreams because it doesn't happen. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. Sadly. Well, not so sadly.
While that may not change, something that is changing almost every map is the Dynasty roster. So, you and I are both Spark and Dynasty fans. I know you're probably a bigger Spark fan than Dynasty, and
totally.
And I'm more vice versa, but, we both support both of these teams, and I was hoping that the Dynasty were going to put up a good fight. There were definitely some close maps, and then there were some absolute shutout maps in favor of the Hanzhou Spark. But basically, we had another couple of twists added to the Seoulercoaster. A couple new turns.
A couple?
A couple. Yeah, a couple. Okay, so, map 1...
A couple means 2, not 6.
Map 1, they play, they're we'll just say Team A. They lose. We go into map 2, no changes. They get decimated on Horizon Lunar Colony. So it's like, okay, we're going into halftime, we're down 0-2. I expect some changes. And what did they do? They're like, you know what? We're gonna throw out the other team out there. So we got 6 substitutions, whole new lineup, and I know they were making a lot of like, oh, it's an all-new team joke. Well, yeah, that's kind of how that works when you have 2 different 6-man starting rosters. So then they do better on that one in map 3. So then we go into map 4, and I want to say they made like 4 substitutions in that one. It was like the tank line and then a support line that they swapped. And then they won that one, and then they go into map 5, and lo and behold, Dynasty are like, you know what, let's throw another curve. We're gonna make 3 substitutions. And it was just like, at the end of the day, it's just like, well, Dynasty, you played yourselves. But I just remember seeing, like, the player cameras during the series after these substitutions, when the Spark lost. They were just sitting there, like, with their arms folded. Just, like, deadpan staring, like, what the hell just happened? Like, how do we combat this? And, like, it's one of those things where, at that time, when you're going into halftime, knowing how bad of a loss it was on Horizon, you 100% needed to make a big change. Because had you kept the same team out there going into map 3, it would have guaranteed a loss. Because a loss like that is very hard to bounce back from. But then to continue to make swaps after that for like the final 3 maps was definitely more questionable. Now, there's pros and cons to this. One, there's kind of like the con of it's like, well, you're kind of just overthinking things. But on the other side, it's also the fact that it does add this extra wrinkle when it comes to teams preparing against the Dynasty, to the point now where I know we've kind of noted, like, well, like, how do you even prepare for the Dynasty? But, like, now that they've basically shown 4 different looks at this point, it just makes it that much harder to prepare. So they have so many different looks at this point that you're just never going to know what team is playing when and when the substitutions are actually going to happen. And there are going to be teams that are going to, like, handle that poorly. But, you know, the Spark kept their wits about them, and they did take that 5th map. And, I mean, really, the control maps in this particular series were not close in Spark versus Dynasty. And that ultimately was kind of, like, their undoing. But, like, it was one of those moments where, as a soulmate, I both loved and loathed seeing the changes, because it was just like, well, if this plays off well, you're going to look like geniuses, but if you lose, it's going to raise a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, Soul is their own worst enemy, is the best way I can put it. Like you said, they went into halftime knowing they needed to make changes. And they made those changes, and they won 2 maps in a row. Why? You're overthinking it at that point. Why in map 5 are you taking out the team that just won 2 matches against the Spark?
Well, it's important to note, though, they only kept 2 of those players from 4 into 5.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they basically flip-flopped the team that just won 2 matches going into map 5, and they're like, all right, let's show them a new thing for map. No, stick with the team that just won 2 maps against them. That the only reason you're in a map 5 is because of this team.
So, like, it's 1 map, though, is what I'm saying.
Wait, I thought they won the last 2 maps. I thought they won map 3 and 4.
So they did, but in map 3 they had like 6, and then they subbed out the tank and the support line into map 4.
Oh, so they switched between map 3 and 4,
right.
and then again,
and then also in
5.
5. So, like, in that case, are you meaning that you would prefer them to just keep the team that was in there for that 4th map?
Yes, because the team that was in there for that map 4 was Jaehong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jaehong is the key to this team. I'm throwing Fissure out the window. Like, I don't think Fissure's the right fit for this team.
No.
He did well in map 3 when they played the more aggressive 6. Like, in map 3, they brought out Fissure. Then they're like, all right, we're going to go a little bit more, aggressive style. But, like, Jaehong is the backbone of that team. So any team that has Jaehong should be out there. It's the simple fact that they're overthinking every single map. They're like, okay, how can I get this 6 to work on this map, this 6 to work on this map, this... It's like they almost have a different team for every map. And it's impossible for you to actually practice and get teamwork when you're trying out different teams for every map. You don't get that sync between the tanks. You don't get the sync between the healers or anything like that if you're constantly switching it up.
So, in this case, Ed, do you feel like it's better to, we'll use the terminology that we'd used prior, or at least the casters did have, like, that A and then that B squad, rather than having that additional, like, 2 or 3 substitution looks on top of that?
I honestly think that they should just have legit 2 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Have 1 team of 6, 1 team of 6. And then if you decide to swap out, you swap out all 6. You don't swap out 3 and 3 or 2 and 2. Like, you either swap in the 6, you swap out the other 6. That way you get the synergy between the teams, and then they can practice against each other. And that's like, I guess that's what the Spitfire tried to do last year, mm-hmm. before they got rid of the majority of their team. But you can build these 6v6 teams, like, scrimming against each other, so nobody knows what's really happening. And you get that synergy, you get that, that they can't prepare for us mentality.
The difference is, though, with that example with the Spitfire was during the inaugural season when they had GC Busan, who royal roaded through Korea, as well as Kondu Panthera. Initially they tried to have them separate, where they had both of the six stacks, and the results there were not great. So then they tried to incorporate like mixtures of the two rosters, and that worked to like varying degrees. Like, it was better than just their traditional six stack and six stack for the core rosters, and then eventually they cut the fat around, and they had that final seven. But at least with the Dynasty, with the two primary looks, they've had immediate results, so to speak. It's just when they're adding that third or fourth look, that's when they're starting to maybe get a little bit too convoluted.
And it's more, it's like I said, they're just overthinking it. They're over analyzing things. They're trying to outsmart the system, and it's not working out.
They're just outsmarting themselves.
Exactly. So, and I mean, now, like, the rumblings that Fissure might take off the rest of stage 3,
or not.
I don't really know. It's like, okay, if he does that, does this throw everything by the wayside?
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. So, I don't know. They need to figure out what is going on. The coaches are trying to overthink things, and it's backfiring. There's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's a reason they have a plus 12 map differential on the season,
right?
And aren't qualified in the top 6 for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're the number 9 team. They are technically right now below the Philadelphia Fusion with a plus 12 map differential. The Fusion have a -2 map differential. Like,
what's the difference in wins at this point between those two?
They're both Philly is 10-8 and Seoul's 10. So it's just a loss. But I mean, even Shanghai, who's also 10-8,
mm-hmm.
-1 map differential. Dallas Fuel, who's 10-10, one more loss. They're right below Seoul Dynasty with a -9 map differential. So, like, everyone around Seoul Dynasty in the rankings has negative map differentials. And then Seoul, here comes Seoul with the 5th highest map differential. And they're 9th.
So basically, Dynasty have a lot to gain if they just stick to a primary roster.
Exactly. Like, right now, they're 2 wins out of placing in the top 6. Because Hanzo, the Spark are in 6, and they're 12-7 with a +4 map differential. So, like, they need to win 2 matches, and the Spark need to lose 2 just for them to get guaranteed into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. For the season playoffs.
But to have, like, the 4th or 5th best map differential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one of those things where it just doesn't make sense.
All I know is if, this Fissure stuff comes to fruition where, he's gotta, like, take a back seat, I'm gonna start starting Jaehan a lot more often in Fantasy, because that basically guarantees that Jaehan is gonna be in there if Marvel is started.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. Yeah, I think if they don't have Fissure, they lose the aspect of that second team or
mm-hmm.
Team B, and I think they just stick with one team after that.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, you get the Marvel, you get the Jaehong, you get the Illicit. I can't even remember who the main healer is. Is it Toby or I think it's Toby.
It's Toby with Jaehong.
And that, who knows? Honestly,
you're just confusing yourself. But anyway,
I really am.
So, of course, we do have some pretty big marquee matches this week for Stage 3, Week 4. So, next week we got the Atlanta homestand. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of shenanigans there. We got Bren versus, was it the Fran? Wasn't that the 1v1 that they were doing?
That is the 1v1 that they're doing, and DeFran actually today just announced he's taking a break from Overwatch.
Perfect timing. Well, he's gonna take a 1 week break then.
Yep. He's going to take a 1 week break. I think he's taking a break from streaming.
Oh, there's also supposed to be like a 1v1 Mickey versus OGE Doomfist battle on Thursday.
Fair?
So, because they were like arguing over who has the best hair between the two on Twitter. I don't know what that has to do with Doomfist, but that was another thing that happened. But anyways, for this week.
Doomfist has no hair.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Doomfist than either one of them.
Here's the thing. Rather than punching each other in the face physically, we'll do it in the game.
Well, they probably both won't play.
Probably.
This is the most stage time Mickey's seen since stage 4.
Which, by the way, it is worth noting. We were talking about like how OGE did want to like take a step back. Because he did tweet out that prior week that maybe he needs a little bit of a break, and Dallas did start Trill last week. To very limited success. I mean, they did lose.
I don't see them bringing OGE back this stage.
I don't either.
I mean, they're out of the playoffs, so they're playing for legit nothing. Because if you look at the playoffs, they're right in the. They basically have to go maybe 500, maybe 500 from here on out to be in the top 12 to qualify. I think they're going to start Trill these next. I don't even know if they play it in Atlanta. Let me see here. Yeah, they don't even play in Atlanta. So it's literally just this one matchup this week.
Which is against New York.
And yeah, I don't see them starting OGE this week.
So looking at the lineup this week, our game of the week, which of course has been the first game on Sunday, we had the LA Gladiators going up against the Vancouver Titans. It's kind of been like two teams that have been slow to adapt to the current shift in the meta. Gladiators haven't really been running Sombra. Titans have, to limited success. But looking at the lineup on Thursday, we have the Hanzhou Spark going up against the LA Valiant. We have the Paris Eternal going up against the Seoul Dynasty. And we have the Shock going up against the Chengdu Hunters. Moving into Friday, we have Spitfire versus Valiant, Defiant versus the Gladiators, and Outlaws versus the Justice. Moving on to Saturday, we have Fuel Excelsior, Uprising Fusion, Mayhem Spark, and then the Dragon's Charge. And of course, the other games on Sunday outside the Gladiators and Titans, we have Spitfire Shock, Outlaws Defiant, and Hunters versus the Dynasty. Alright, Ed, so kind of circling back to the Valiant here really quick. The Valiant, with that upset win over the Titans, are sitting at 4-1 this stage. Basically, if they secure a win, either over Hanzhou Spark or the London Spitfire, that's going to guarantee them a spot in the Stage 3 playoffs. But this is one of those weeks where, with London, that's always a case of, well, what London's going to show up, because it's a very inconsistent team. There's times when they look lights out and times that the lights are just off. The Spark are definitely going to be the harder of the two games. So I want to get your thoughts on how the Valiant are going to fare. Like, are they going to split this week and then finish with a 5-2 record to get that playoff berth for Stage 3?
Yeah, I honestly do. I think if they, and I hate to say this as a Spark fan, I think if they win one of the matchups, it's going to be against the Spark. And I don't think I see them beating the Spitfire. My reasoning behind this is the Valiant have looked really good against 3-3. Mm-hmm. They have kind of done the, we're going to either force you to not play 3-3 or we're just going to wreck your 3-3. And the Spark have really been running a lot of 3-3. Now, they definitely go down in the ranks when they have to switch off of that. Because Godsby is their Sombra player, and Godsby, I love you, man. You're not the best Sombra in the world. Okay, you're a great player. Somber is not your go-to. Whereas the Spitfire can actually probably match the Valiant when it comes to these DPS comps and stuff like that. Like, I mean, we saw Fury this past week on Pharah a lot, and he actually didn't look bad. So I think the Spitfire versus Valiant is going to be okay, who's got the better DPS?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, I'm giving it to the Spitfire. They have better DPS. Yeah, and they have Fury, who will just negate basically every ult. So if the Valiant do win a match this week, I think it's against the Spark and not against the Spitfire. I don't think they're not going to go 2-0. Like, I know they're the new hotness since the Outlaws lost last week, but that's just the bandwagon talking. But like, let's be real. Like, people jumped on the Houston Outlaw bandwagon after they beat the Shock, and then they lose to the Mayhem.
Well, here's the thing about that too. I feel like the Valiant have been, when it comes to the resurgency, so to speak, talk, the Valiant have definitely been skewered a lot higher than the Outlaws were with their upset.
Yeah, and one thing the Valiant, like, you could arguably the only reason the Valiant beat the Titans was Kariv. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. Kariv played the best Ana week of any player in Overwatch League history. Was Kariv last week. You can negate a lot of Ana play with a D.Va. So if you try and hard counter Kariv with, let's say, Rhea or, Fury, who basically eats other abilities for a living.
I mean, he does get paid to do that.
Yeah, like, you can shut down or force Kariv to play Zenyatta, which is definitely his weaker support of the two, of the, Zenyatta or Ana. You do that, you automatically weaken the Valiant. I think the Valiant, now granted, the Valiant have played very well, but they're not a top 4 team. They're top 8 probably, but they're not a top 4 team. I think you can easily counter the Valiant. I mean, they didn't even run. They just 100% said, screw it. We're not even running a D.Va. And we're not even going to play space versus the Titans. We're purely going, DPS against this team. And the Titans just didn't adjust properly. A week after that, the Spark and the Spitfire will have a chance to watch the tape, see them, and then be like, okay, this is how we handle it. So, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. The Spark versus the Valiant is actually my game of the week. I think that will probably be the best game of the week. Right there. So, definitely watch it. It's nice that it's going to be the first game.
Yeah, and for the Valiant, too, like, they're basically, it's kind of crappy, though, in a way, because they play Thursday and Friday, and they're both the first game, so, like, that doesn't leave them a lot of prep time, like, in between their matches, so we'll see if there's a detriment in regards to their performance just due to that, but, that could work both for you and against you, because you're going to be more warmed up, because, like, you literally had just played.
Yeah, and, I mean, they could, in theory, lose both the games and still make the playoffs.
Potentially.
But not likely.
Right.
Like, 4-3 will generally keep you in the hunt, but
if you have 0 or above map differential,
I don't even know about that because, there's a lot of people right now with 0 or above map differentials.
Okay.
Actually, the top 12.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, like, in the past, that's kind of been
in the past,
the cutoff.
But like, if you look at the standings right now, like, the Guanzo Charge are at 2-2 in 12th place with a 0 map differential.
Yeah, and there's like half of the league at 3 wins, basically, too.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
So it's gonna be hard. If they get 1 win, I think they're guaranteed a spot. I don't see someone Like, I don't think anyone could get 5 wins and not make it in. So I hope they do. They're fun to watch. They really are. Like, I'll say this. I've been an outlaw hater for the first 2.5 stages. But I will say now, the outlaw, now that they're actually playing their own game and playing to their strength, they're kind of fun to watch. I'm not cheering for them by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't even consider them a top 10 team at this point. But they're not a shit show to watch. They're interesting to watch. But I think they fall under the lines of the Chengdu Hunters. Like, they're fun to watch, but they're not that good. Because let's be real, the Hunters have never really been that good.
Yeah,
They've just been...
It's a team that has, like, upset potential, but, like, they also have to put themselves in a position to be able to do that when it matters.
Exactly. So, like, I consider the Houston Outlaws the same as Chengdu Hunters. But with the Valiant, I see them as actually better team than either one of those teams. And they could do a lot. And the fact that they brought in Shax and Fiction, and they're both doing great for that team, which is like, Shax has really, not only has he been playing great, the biggest thing is he allows agilities to actually play his style of Overwatch, which you've seen.
Which is Flash.
Agilities has played very well this stage, in my mind. So, they just let the other players on the team shine. So, I like the Valiant. I think they go 1-1 this week, and they essentially clinch a playoff.
Yeah, I feel like this week, too, is another good opportunity for the Dynasty to clinch their spot. They do face Paris Eternal on Thursday, and then they face the Chengdu Hunters for the last game of the week on Sunday. So, I would imagine, like, we'll probably end up seeing a primary look from the Dynasty this week, and that's probably going to be for the best. I'm more curious to see, like, what approach they're going to take against Paris, because Paris has been a team who, their 3-3 has looked good, but there's still, like, a shaky presence on that front line with Ben Best, and I feel like they can definitely exploit that in the 3-3 mirror with Marvell in the lineup. So I'm definitely going to favor them in that. But the Hunters one is always an interesting one, because we've seen teams try to either just run 3-3 straight against them, or try to counter DPS, and the counter DPS has actually been working, so maybe we'll have one game where Dynasty are running 3-3 mirror, and then the Hunters game when they're going to look to match the DPS. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, if that's how it's going to play out, but I am expecting the Dynasty to go 2-0 this week.
I don't think they should run 3-3 against Paris. Like, don't play into Paris's strength when you don't need to. Like, let's be real. Paris, outside of 3-3, not that great.
Yeah, their DPS has been pretty shaky, and I feel like a lot of their 3-3 has revolved around Danye as well lately. He's definitely had some pretty standout performances on the Zarya.
Yeah, so if you're like, okay, we can beat them easily with a DPS type comp, you need to go that route and just steamroll them. Because right now, the best thing going for them is their map differential, and they need to do whatever they can to get as many map wins as possible.
Right.
So, but I do think that they go 2-0 this week as well.
So outside of that, I don't think this is going to be like a fantastic series, but there is intrigue on this particular series just because of the new look that we are going to see. So I'm going to look at the Florida Mayhem Hanzhou Spark game. So, going back to the most recent roster signings by the Mayhem, we basically know Gargoyle from WGS Armament is coming in to be the team's starting off tank, but they did note he's primarily going to be playing Zarya. Now, again, this is going to be more for this current meta. Outside of that, he'll be playing Diva. And it's definitely going to be a nice upgrade. It's just a matter of, are Mayhem going to stick to Sombra Goats, and who's going to be on what role? Because they also have DPI as, like, their flex DPS specialist. So what is this going to mean for BQB? I don't know where all the pieces are going to fit yet, but that's the biggest question mark about that team. But I'm excited to see Gargoyle, because he was definitely one of the standouts for WGS moving forward. But I'm not going to expect the world from the Mayhem, even after their win, which, by the way, I did tweet at casual Overwatch League fans, and I was like, the next time you win a game, I'm expecting, like, a full-blown parade. And I want to say they had, like, a reply of something along the lines of, like, well, isn't, like, 2 Mayhem fans being in the same room already kind of a parade?
That's not a parade.
No.
No, that's an awkward social gathering.
Yeah.
At best, it's an awkward social gathering. But no, it will be interesting to see. Like, we just don't know what the heck is gonna happen. Is Fate gonna play? Like, are they gonna run triple DPS? Like, what are they gonna do with basically a brand new team? Mm-hmm. Like, this is definitely, when you call it a trap game for a team, this is a trap game for the Spark. Because they're going in blind.
Yeah, they're not knowing the hand.
They're going in and like, we have no idea what they're going to play. We have no idea who's going to play. Nothing. So it's a trap game for them. But it actually should be a good one. Saturday has, outside of the Dallas, New York game, could be the best day of Overwatch, like, sneakily. Because, like, Philly and Boston, the 2 Map 5 Kings, the Spark Mayhem, and then Shanghai versus Charge could actually be a good game. Because this is 2 DPS teams going up against each other. You just don't know what's going to happen. So Saturday could be a crazy good day for Overwatch.
Absolutely. So outside of that, I feel like looking across at the other games, like, I don't know which other one I'm looking forward to the most. My problem is, like, every time I look at the Spitfire, I was like, well, they haven't really fared well against the top team, so, like, I don't think they're gonna do well against the Shock in that series. Outlaws have, like, a pretty weak schedule this week.
It's gonna be the make or break week for the Outlaws.
Absolutely. So
because they've beaten the top, they've lost to the bottom.
Right.
Like, so they play Toronto and the Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Which they should easily both just stomp. If they lose one of those matches, not only are they probably out of the playoffs, they're a rank 14 team. Like, and especially going into what is a 2-2-2 lock, the Outlaws will actually get worse. One of the few teams that will get worse with a 2-2-2 lock.
Because then they're actually having to play an off tank.
Exactly. Like, they've been resurged because they've been playing Dante, Linkser, and Jake at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't do that in a 2-2-2 unless Dante is playing Diva the whole time. Well, if you're playing a Diva the whole time, you're not going to have Dante in there. You're going to bring in Cool Matt or Spree, who's an actual Diva player. So, like, they're actually going to be getting worse with a 2-2-2 lock. So this is their time to actually make up some ground. So this is probably the biggest week of the year for the Outlaws, and they're facing the Justice and Toronto. So I don't know. If they go 1-1, it could be lights out for the Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye out for that, especially the Defiant game. I mean, heck, the Justice even. The Justice should have beat the Spitfire.
They absolutely should have.
Like, they blew it. It was like they went up, and it's just like, oh shit, what do we do now? We were not supposed to be in the lead. Okay, good. We blew the lead. This is what we're supposed to do. Like, so
We're following the script.
we're following the script. So, and I hate to say it, but this could be another one. We saw Linkser get just smoked by Saya Player this past week. Well, you know who else is an awesome Widowmaker? Corey. Could see Linkser be the weak point of the team again this week. So, definitely keep an eye out. It's the movers weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always have that week in a professional sports season where it's like, all right, this is the week where you either make the playoffs or you're out of the playoffs. That's this week in Overwatch League. So, at the end of this week, we're basically going to know who's going to be playing in the playoffs. Because if you look at week 5, that's a whole bunch of non-playoff teams.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how many teams this stage are going to finish 4-3 or higher.
Yeah.
Because the potential is higher this stage than any other stage that we've seen.
Yep. We're going to have a large chunk right in the middle that's going to be battling, and it's going to be based on map differential.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking forward to it. Should be a fun week.
Yeah, and then next week, we have one of the homestands, so we'll see how that plays out.
God, there's so many bad teams in week 5.
I know.
Like,
we'll talk about that next week, though. It's gonna be a rough go of things, especially with the way Atlanta's been playing, to be honest. But you know what? What better way to revitalize yourselves than by going home? Maybe they'll play up like Dallas did.
I mean, yeah, they could. They also are playing the Toronto Defiant and the Florida Mayhem, so they don't have to play up that much.
This is true.
They're playing 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the league.
I feel like Overwatch League was just like, you know what, Atlanta, here's a softball. It's like one of those weeks.
Right? And then they're like, hey, you know who else we can sprinkle in there? The Washington Justice and the Guangzhou Charge. Oh god, this is going to be ugly. And you're like, ooh, Toronto, is the Fusion. They're a good team. This is awkward. So not so much.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Fusion keep running DPS.
And
at least they look better.
Yeah. And New York is like, why are we here? We don't like which one is not like the other. The New York Excelsior. So I don't know, but like you said, we'll talk about that next week. But this upcoming week will be the week that decides the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple.
So with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. We're always looking for ways to improve the show to make for a better listening experience for you guys. I do want to note, I had to go back on our prior episode to realign the tracks again because something wonky happened during the editing phase. So shout outs to everyone in our Discord for making quick note of that so I could go back and re-upload.
Was it me this time? I didn't screw it up.
No, that was entirely on me. But you know what? It's one of those things, one misclick can be our demise,
Oh yeah, totally. It's like, oh, crap.
Sometimes shit happens.
Yep, exactly.
And that's how the Justice were born.
Oh, at least you went there, and
sorry.
not me this time. That was a complete Ednar quote right there. I'm kind of proud.
Well, anyway, so, outside of leaving us glowing reviews over on iTunes or your podcast app of choice, You can also find additional Overwatch-related content on Overwatch Recall, which is available on our website. We're also on Twitter at OW Recall. So every Sunday night, we release the episodic listens from all of the podcast stuff from the prior week. So definitely check that out. There's usually like 24, well, on the low end, like 18 to the high end, like 28 to 30 episodes a week throughout the podcast community. So I highly recommend you guys go check out some of the other happenings in our podcast scene. If you'd like to support our podcast network further, you can do so a couple of ways. You could throw some Twitch Prime subs our way, which we actually saw at the start of the stream, like even before we started talking. So shout out to XVZard85 for doing that. We greatly appreciate that. You could also, on top of throwing us some Twitch Prime love, you could consider pledging to our Patreon. There we have tiers starting at just a $1 a month, so you can find more information on our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabal, and Owl in helping our network grow. So I want to thank all you guys again for your continued support for not just this podcast, but all of the podcasts that are on our network. And if you are a patron, you probably saw, a sneak peek of some Heroes Never Die stuff to come, which I know we're really excited about, so we'll have more details on that fairly soon. But Ed, we have a number of different ways how our listeners and viewers can get a hold of us over on social media, so why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at @hndoverwatch. We do have a website where we put all our YouTube podcasts, all that fun stuff, and that's owlnshow.com. We do have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord. We are pretty active, especially during games. So come join us over there, chit chat with us at discord.me/OWLN show. We are streaming live presently on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly, so we stream Overwatch League Network, which airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific with Totem and Spider, who I hate. And then on Tuesdays, we have our Fantasy Overwatch show, OWL by the Numbers, and that starts at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule, so be sure to follow us on Discord and on Twitter to see when we go live. Totem mentioned, come over to patreon.com/OWL Network. Help support the show start even further, starting at just $1 a month. You can contact me personally on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm over on Twitter as well at TumblyDrunkCTR. And again, if anyone has any Dynasty solo, double, trio inks that I do not have, please reach out to me and we can work some trades on that. Hopefully I can get the booklet that I'm looking to get for that team in particular. But with that being said, guys, I want to thank everyone again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 166. I've been your host, Tumblery Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar, and we hope to see you guys back for our next show. Take care, and have a good night.
Adios.